Jai Prabhuji. In our previous class, we learned about the three levels of reality. The Paramatmika, which is the ultimate reality, Vyavaharika, the relative reality, and the Pratibhashika, which is the illusory reality. We learned that people are questioning often what is reality, and they are taken in consideration like there is only one reality. In Advaita Vedanta, when we talk about the ultimate reality, this is the reality that we refer to as the unchangeable, always exists, doesn't go under changes. So we've learned in the previous class that there are three levels of reality. We have the absolute, we have the relative, the one that what we consider day-to-day a reality. Our reality, when I consider myself as an I, and there are objects that are different from me, and the world is different from me, and anything that is in the limits of this body, anything that is far from the limits of this body is like the objective world. And we also spoke about the illusory reality. But in this class, I wanted to dive into the subject of Mithya. Mithya is a central concept in Advaita Vedanta and is often translated as illusion or false appearance. It doesn't mean something that is completely non-existent, but rather something that appears real but doesn't have an independent existence. And it's very important because this idea of that Mithya doesn't have an independent existence will get more, we will repeat it more in this class in order to understand what we are referring to when we say Mithya. So we already established that what is real exists in the past, present, and the future. It doesn't go under any changes and remains unaffected. If you remember, we gave the example of the screen. The screen stays unattached no matter what movie we are projecting on it. So if we understand that existence or reality is what always existed in past, future, and present, we can say that in contrast, what is unreal doesn't exist in any of the three periods of time and isn't constant. It comes and goes, comes and goes. So anything that is happening to us from the most near, we can say, object like the body, or even more internal, which is the feelings and emotions, if we pay attention, these are all come and go under changes. Our body changes from moment to moment, our feelings and emotions, our thoughts. From this, we get to the conclusion that is not the ultimate reality. If it's the ultimate reality, it doesn't change. It exists always. It doesn't go under any changes. But we experience the changeable reality from moment to moment. Now, what is non-real, Mithya, occupies an intermediate place between Sat, existence, and Asat, non-existence. And with Mithya, it sometimes exists and sometimes not. And this is why it's considered to be like an intermediate place. It's not like what we said before, that if it goes under any change, then we cannot consider it as a reality. But if it doesn't, then we can consider this a reality. So we said that Mithya, sometimes it exists and sometimes it doesn't. Let's revisit the classical snake rope analogy that we analyzed deeply also in our previous class. So when walking in the dark, we may mistake a rope for a snake. The snake is not real. It has never existed in the past, doesn't exist in the present, and will not exist in the future. We project on the rope a snake. But we also cannot say that it's entirely unreal, because it raises fear in us. It raises this fear and it is real for us. So the image or the idea of a snake also shows that it existed previously in our mind. We cannot project something that didn't exist beforehand in our concepts or idea. But even though we project, the fear that we feel, the fear that strikes in us is real. And this is why in this analogy of the snake and the rope, it's called Mithya. Because we said that the snake isn't real, but the fear is real for the observer, for the one who experienced it, it is real. So the snake is non-real, is Mithya. It has existence for the frightened person, but it stops to exist when ignorance vanishes. So as soon as we realize that it's not a snake and we just projected on the rope the snake, the fear vanishes. And here arises a question. So how we can refer to situation where something doesn't exist, which means it isn't real, but raises real emotions in us, real sensation, like in this case, fear. So Mithya refers to something that is neither entirely real nor entirely unreal, right? It appears to exist, but doesn't have an independent existence. The snake doesn't have independent existence. We are just projecting it on the rope. And it exists only in relation to something else. That's what it means, that something doesn't have an independent existence. That is, it exists only in relation to something else. So for example, a dream appears real while one is dreaming it, but it disappears upon waking. Right? As soon as we wake up, the dream disappears. It doesn't have its own existence. And this is where the concept of Adhyasa, superimposition, comes in. Adhyasa, it's a mistaken overlapping of what is real with what is not. We confuse the apparent with the real. Just as we mistake the rope for a snake, right? We mistake it. It never existed. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Patanjali explains that due to avidya, ignorance, we confuse the real with the unreal, the pure with the impure, the self with the non-self. So we are mistaking one thing to another. And it's very important to understand that what we consider a reality, we are mistaking it to something else. Like I consider myself as I, with the body, with the mind, with thoughts. Anything that is close to me is mine. Anything that I care less, I don't pay attention. All what I see around is just objects. But I'm in the center of it all. I consider myself as the center of the world. And we consider the self with the non-self. There is a notion in us that we look for reality. We look for what is real. We experience the changes in the world and we look for what doesn't change. But we also mistaken ourselves to be as the self. I consider this transitory body as the I that exists. So we are walking in life mistakenly one thing to another. So in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Patanjali says that it's due to avidya, in ignorance. In Advaita Vedanta, we speak mostly that it's due to Adhyasa, the superimposition. But what the superimposition does is that we mistaken one thing to something else. Now, in this mistaken perception, now that we understand also the concept of Adhyasa, the superimposition, we as human beings under illusion, we see objects as separate from ourselves and believe this distinction to be real. It's not that I only go in the world and feel that everything outside me is the objective world. I truly believe that this is the reality, that this is what is happening. And so we believe this distinction to be real. And this leads toward it leads us to feel attraction towards certain objects and repulsion towards others. Obviously, if there are objects that give me more pleasure, I will want to be near them, or I will want to have them. But when there is something that doesn't give me pleasure, I want to reject it. I don't want to get near to it. These attractions and repulsions govern our daily actions and drive us as human beings. One of the foundational concepts in yoga is that all beings seek happiness. Every creature, from a tiny fly to the human being. The search for happiness is a fundamental drive. Where do we differ? In how we pursue it, or where we believe happiness resides. So some seek it in love, family, status, wealth, or other external achievements. But at the core of it all, the search remains the same. We are all looking for the same thing, even if it looks on the outside. That people are searching different things. At the core of it, the search is for happiness. The way we pursue it, or where we think it exists, this is where we differentiated as human beings. And here comes two terms that will help us to understand the attractions and repulsion. And it's priya and apriya. Priya refers to what is pleasing. So the definition is that priya refers to anything that is dear, beloved, or pleasing to us. It associated with happiness, with comfort, and attachment. We mentioned before, whatever gives us pleasure, we want to have. So it creates in us a constant running after. We run after priya. We want to experience priya, which is pleasant. We don't want to experience apriya, which is not pleasant. So it can be pleasant sensations, loved ones, favorite foods, or enjoyable experiences. All of these fall under priya. Now, in Advaita Vedanta, priya represent our attachment to external pleasures, mistaking them for permanent happiness. Pay attention how much we are using the term mistaking, because this is our experience as a human being. We run after external pleasures, running after objects that we think that will give us happiness and pleasure, and we mistaken them to be real, that this is the real thing. I do believe that once I have this person, I will be happy. And once I will achieve this car or position at work, I will be happy. And guess what? Most of us go in life that after we achieved what we thought that will give us happiness, we find ourselves not happy. Like not in the absolute happiness or the constant bliss that we're looking for. Now, all these external pleasures that we mistaken them to be permanent, also with the time lose their effulgence. They lose their taste, or lose the spark that we thought that they have. Now, on the other hand, the true joy, ananda, which is bliss and is different than happiness, ananda is the true joy. It lies beyond any sensory pleasure, and it's found in the realization of the self. This is why it's so easy to confuse, because in the core of our existence, in the self, we know that there exists an experience that is ananda, that is true joy, constant bliss. But when we still under the ignorance and the illusion, when we feel happiness for moments or hours or days, we think that this is the bliss. We arrived. Then with the time, this experience turns to be also illusory. We understand and we feel that true happiness was not achieved. Priya is very essential, because this running after Priya, running after enjoyment, govern our daily actions from moment to moment. Now, let's talk about apriya, which is what is unpleasant. Okay, so apriya refers to anything undesirable, disagreeable, or unpleasant experience that bring us discomfort, sorrow, or aversions. So it can be pain, can be loss, failure, or any criticism. They all fall under the definition of apriya. And pay attention, when we talk about apriya, it means, as we said, unpleasant situations. What happens when someone criticizes us? It's not enough that he criticizes us and we don't agree with him, right? Because we always right. And we think that others do not understand us as we are. And this person just criticized me because he doesn't understand. Our egoic experience is that we are more contracted. It's like someone that criticizes us is not coming for our benefit, obviously, but in our internal experience, we feel the notion of reduction, that someone is reducing me. So obviously, we are not interested in apriya. We are not interested in discomfort. We are not interested in sorrow. But in the worldly life, we experience both. As long as we are under the illusion, as long as we are in this material identification, and worldly identification, we will experience both, because we said true bliss, true ananda, exists only when we realize the self. But as long as we are not, yes, we will experience moments of happiness and fun and pleasure, but we will have to be in understanding that in life we will experience both. Part of being mature is to understand that life includes both experiences, and to cling to one will not help. We will always experience the other side of the coin. So we instinctively want to avoid apriya and run after priya. We know that both are temporary and depend on perception. And how it depends on perception, it's enough to look at the people around you that you will see that what gives you pleasure maybe doesn't give them. The things that you're running after, it's the things that someone else even doesn't want to get near to. So we can see that all this priya and apriya, it depends. It has an existence that depends on our perception. In a beautiful darshan, Prabhuji gave the analogy with priya and apriya related to a rope. Think that you are holding a rope. On one side is priya, the other side is apriya. And what happens? You're all the time in between the poles, right? You're either running after or you are running from. And in this chasing after or running from, we are not able to live in the present. We are not able to live in the now, because we are in a constant chasing or constant running from. And in this way, we cannot really experience life. First of all, we don't accept what life brings to us at this moment. We are just either running after or running from. So we are not open to what life has to give us. And if we are all the time in this chase, we cannot be really in the now. And the wise person, he learns to transcend this duality. He recognizes that neither priya nor apriya defines the ultimate reality. So in the spiritual path, we are encouraged to develop equanimity, remaining steady in wisdom, no matter if the experience is pleasant or unpleasant, if we experience happiness or if we experience sorrow. So neither chasing pleasure or nor rejecting discomfort, this is one of the practices, we can say, for the spiritual seeker. One of the verses from the Bhagavad Gita that is relevant to our topic is from chapter 2, verse 14, which Krishna advises Arjuna to tolerate both pleasure and pain. And what does he tell him? That they come and go like seasons. So Krishna tells Arjuna, O descendant of Bharata, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. And this being disturbed is very important here, because this is the equanimity that we develop as much as we go in the path, and we are practicing not just to follow what's pleasant for me. Many times I will do what is not. And where comes the service, the karma yoga, the giving yourself in your service, is when situations are not pleasant, but you continue to do your service, you continue to be there for the other, you continue to do this. The result is not your concern. You are just giving, you are just serving. We should strive to stop the constant chasing and constant running after and running away from. This is what we inspire. Okay, this is what we would like to achieve. This is where we would like to be, in equanimity. And what happens in equanimity? You are able to experience life with what is offering you at the moment. And we stop taking the apriya, the unpleasant situations, as like a bad luck or a course, but we take it as a lesson to learn from. That if life, if existence chose to put me in difficulty, to put me in sorrow, to put me in these challenging situations, I have what to learn from it. But it's also relevant to the priya. It's not enough just to say, oh, when I'm in apriya, I should accept what life is presenting in front of me. Also, when we are experiencing priya, do not get attached to it so much. Don't forget, it's the other side of the coin. If you experience now happiness, be sure that sorrow or unhappiness will follow. The idea is that the wise one, the darshina, is not under the spell of these experiences. He is always aware of the self and of the unchangeable reality. So all these apriya and priya situations or circumstances are projected on the screen of life. And when we are not attached to one and run from the other, we are able to experience this constant presence or constant awareness. The enlightened one neither clings to priya nor is disturbed by apriya. And in knowing both to be fleeting and ultimately unreal from the absolute perspective. So for the darshina, for the one who sees, for the one who realized his true nature, for the one who realized the truth, there is no distinction between what is pleasing and what is unpleasant. They see all objects and experiences as arising due to the limitation of the body and mind. They are all the time, they are in constant awareness that they're in a way that their vision remains transcendental. They do not chase after object, neither they not reject by others. So because they recognize that everything is part of the same reality. If we want to experience the self, we want to experience Brahman, we want to experience reality, we cannot negate one part of it. It's a whole thing. So in that sense, the enlightened beings do not focus on the diversity of the world. They are also not rejecting the world. Instead, they are always aware of its true essence. We talk a lot about our experience as a human beings that identified with that body-mind and live under the illusion and what we are chasing, the pleasant experiences, how we run away from unpleasant experiences. But it's also important to try to understand or even get more familiar with the objective world. So in the objective world, we can observe 5 fundamental factors. It's existence, which is sat, consciousness, which is chit, bliss, ananda, name, nama, and form for rupa. So the first 3, Satchidananda, belong to reality and they are attributes of Brahman. So when we describe what is Brahman, we say Brahman is Satchid Ananda. When one experiences Brahman, he experiences existence, consciousness, and bliss. He doesn't experience the changeable reality, but he experiences those as permanent. Now, Satchidananda is the substance of which Brahman is made of. So, when we experience Brahman, we experience these qualities of Satchidananda. And Satchidananda differs from Priya in the fact that the bliss we feel is not related or not dependent on any external object. It's the nature of Brahman. It is not in the realm of duality. In this world, in order for us to feel happiness, we need a certain object. We need something that with it we feel happiness. We said that some can feel it with a lover, some can feel it with a position, with a house, with a car, with anything you can think of, that you think that because of this object, or when you will gain this object, you will be happy, you will be fulfilled. But Satchidananda is not an existence that depends on external object. It is not part of the material world. So it's the essence of Brahman. It's the essence, is our true nature. There is Satchidananda experience that we are striving for. We mistaken it to the happiness of this world, but the experience of the self, the experience of Brahman, is constant bliss. Constant, not dependent on anything. Now, on the other hand, remember, now we were talking only about Satchidananda, which are the three first factors. We have two other ones, Nama and Rupa, name and form. So on the other hand, Nama and Rupa belong to this objective world. Only in this objective world, there is this distinction with Nama and Rupa. So this leads to an interesting observation that if we take any object, but we remove from it its name and its form, what remains? Only the true nature of it. Only Brahman's remains. So we can take one of the examples that Prabhuji gives in his book of Advaita Vedanta, and it's related to the gold example. So Prabhuji explains, only names and forms are distinctive. The other three, existence, consciousness, and bliss, are shared by all things. What all objects in the world have in common is a single, unchanging nature that remains throughout all periods of time. Only name and form can change or disappear. And here comes the gold example. So gold is the material from which jewelries are made. The jewelry itself, if it's earrings, necklaces, rings, represents the objects. So gold is the underlying reality, we can say. Now, a gold ring, earring, or necklace can be melted, right? And lose its form. But what remains? Remains the gold itself. The gold itself remains unchanged. So this example shows us that at the nature of everything lies the Satchidananda, which is the unchangeable. The gold doesn't change. When we turn it to be a ring or a necklace, then it takes Nama and Rupa. it takes a form, and it takes a name. And this is where the differentiation comes in. Not in the Satchidananda, but in the Nama and Rupa. So think about it like with Brahman. Brahman takes on diverse form. He takes on diverse forms, but yet its essence always the same. It doesn't change. Our Brahmanic nature that lies within me and lies within you doesn't change. What changes, what goes under changes, is our name and is our form. But if you take our name and form, the Nama Rupa, from the equation, what stays? Brahman. And this is why these examples help us to understand that when we talk about the objective world, even though we see namas and rupas and we see we think that we are different from one another, at the core of it, at the essence, we all have the same background. We all have the Brahmanic nature. So Prabhuji says that the Supreme Reality presents itself as trees, flowers, rivers, stars, human being, and so on. These forms are temporary and subject to change. But as long as we focus on the form, whether is the ring or the earring, we do not see the gold. Once we are getting attached to a form and we are occupied with the form, we don't see the essence. So as long as we focus on the gold, as long as we focused on the rupa, we overlook the jewelry. It's either or. We can either look at the gold and see that it doesn't go any other changes, or we look at the form. So the forms are subjected to change. They are temporary, where the reality is internal and unchanging. So if we continue with the example of the gold, when a woman buys a jewelry, her attention is on the form, right? The beauty of the piece. This is what we're looking for. But the jeweler, on the other side, he focuses always on the gold. He needs to know the weight of the gold, the purity, and the value. So we can see from this example that what's important in all our experiences. Don't think that we're talking here now about gold or any experience that is not related to our daily life. Any experience in our daily life that we are attached to, that we are running after, that we are so occupied, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that we are a bad boy or a bad girl. No, it doesn't mean that. It shows us where our attention is. Is my attention on the substance, or my attention is on the temporal? Is my attention on the limitless, or my attention is towards the limit? And this is a very key point to any spiritual seeker, to anyone who is walking the path. Any situation that happens to you, you can consider, what am I focusing now? On the temporal or the eternal? So Prabhuji concludes, objects are real in their Brahman aspect because what is real never disappears. However, even though we perceive these objects, they cannot be considered truly real. They are Mithya, just like the snake that frightens a confused person. So understanding this helps us to move beyond delusion and recognize the unchanging reality beneath all appearances. And this is why I mentioned that it's a key point to us, because the way we carry ourselves, the way we behave, not when we sit and meditate, or when we pray in the temple, or when we feel like a wave of devotion, in every appearance, in every situation that happens to us in the daily life, we can see where is our focus. We can say, am I chasing after the temporal existence, or am I trying to realize the Brahmanic nature, trying to realize that doesn't change? So in the search to recognize the unchanging reality, we can take each opportunity that is presented in front of us to grow, to elevate. And if we take the simple example, you met someone and he offended you. You can take it as a personal offense and maybe get into quarrel with him and try to put him in place. But this is not the way of the sages, right? In sainthood, we don't blame the other. We always look at ourselves. So first of all, I can check what made him feel this way, or what in my behavior made him feel this way. Second, we can say, oh, I feel offended, to realize that you feel this, not to try to avoid it, not try to escape from it, and start questioning yourself. Who got offended? Is it the real I, the real me, or is it the illusory me? The self cannot get offended. The self is unchangeable, is not affected. So the one who is affected is the one that is an illusion, and anyway identified with the body and the mind and the thoughts. So it's very easy to get sad, or to get happy, or to get offended. So this is not knowledge that we can just see in the books, and I'm specifically bringing it down to experiences that each one of us have in his daily interactions with other people, to the daily life where we can ask ourselves, what am I, or what is the best way that I can relate to this situation with more spiritual understanding and with more direction to grow. So if we want to recognize the unchanging reality, it's easy in that sense that we can see that what we are engaged with, our attachment, the things that we want or running after, we see the reality that changes in a constant change. Then again, we don't say push it away or neglect it. I don't want us to get the impression that we're talking about neglecting the word, because this is not what we are talking about here. Realize it, understand it, accept it, but always remember that there is an unchanging reality beneath all appearances. What for the Darshina, for the enlightened ones, for the seers, what is their nature, as long as we identify yet with the illusion and we are with the veil of avidya, of ignorance, for us it will be a practice. For us it will be something that we need to remember at the beginning. But with time, as much as we practice, as much as we give ourselves, as much as we serve, we are getting closer and closer to realize our true nature and what we are made of. Sat, Chid, Ananda. And that the name and form, Rupa and Nama, are not permanent. They are present here for a certain period of time and will vanish will disappear, but Satchidananda stays always. So I wish us all to experience Satchidananda, and thank you so much for joining me. Jai Prabhuji.